Welcome back to part 2 of my short biography on James Madison. If you haven't seen the first part, go check that out. Madison easily won the election of 1808, but his presidency was marred by political division that left his cabinet neutered and him in a difficult position. This was made worse because he was elected on the eve of the War of 1812, with tensions building with Britain since the Jay Treaty, and he convinced Congress to declare war with the US in a compromised position. Jefferson had reduced the army and the navy during his presidency, and Madison had to compete with a much more organized British force. The war ended in something of a stalemate, but because of Andrew Jackson's victory in New Orleans, Americans viewed it as a victory. The post-war period of Madison's presidency brought with it the famed era of good feelings, where division was low. During this time, Madison adopted many of the policies he previously opposed due to his learned experience in war. This included adopting Hamilton's view on the importance of a national bank and led to Congress chartering the Second Bank of the United States. This period also saw the beginning of federal spending on public infrastructure, something that Madison had supported since the Federalist Papers 20 years earlier. Madison's wife, Dolly Todd, shaped what it meant to be the First Lady, and she was highly respected in Washington, and Madison relied on her heavily for guidance and support in public life. His stance on natives was said to have been paternal, but as we so often see in regards to natives, actual relations under Madison's administration were plagued by conflicting interests, bigotry, forced treaties, wars, and general disregard for native interests. Madison left office as a popular president, with former President Adams writing that Madison had acquired more glory and established more union than all three of his predecessors, Washington, Adams, and Jefferson, put together. Madison died as he lived, anxious. He feared that his fellow Americans wouldn't understand him, so he spent his last few years editing his letters and writings to better his legacy. He, like Washington and Jefferson, became poorer after his presidency, and he suffered financial trouble until he died and passed it on to his wife, who also met the same fate. In my opinion, Madison's greatest failure was his stance on slavery. It's said that he hated slavery his whole life, yet he was a lifelong benefactor of it, although many of his over 100 slaves could read, and he never used violence against them. Paul Jennings, one of his slaves, would write that Madison was the greatest man to ever live, although he never freed his slaves, even in death. As Montesquieu says, men merely play their roles within the greater historical trends of their day. Madison lived his life between two great waves, liberalism and the most despicable institution. He championed human rights while being tended to by slaves. Just as he never freed his slaves, he was never able to free himself from the tyrannical institution that dominated his life, although it was a kind domination, just as he was to his slaves. Like all the founders, there were quite sharp contradictions that plagued the father of the Constitution, from the cradle to the grave. That's all I got for you today. If you enjoyed and learned something, I'd appreciate a like and a share. And if you want to see my deep dive into what James Madison wrote about the government he created, go check out my long-form video on YouTube. Subscribe to me there and follow me on TikTok.